Okay, get ready to be real talk. Real, real. Get ready to be real shook. Because today, right now, we're talking about some crazy ass shit. It's the Messianic secret. Now this is the crazy concept that Jesus was trying to disguise the fact that he is the Messiah in Mark's Gospel. Now you might be wondering, why did he do this? And that's what every other church scholar ever that's ever read Mark has wondered, because there's a lot of conflicting theories, there's a lot of different ideas, and it doesn't seem like it makes the most sense originally. So William Reed was one of the first people to ever investigate this, quite a modern scholar, and he used statements made by Jesus to demons and his followers, where Jesus said, please, he didn't say please, but he said, don't reveal my nature. Don't tell people that I am the Son of God. Do not spread the word about my ministry to other people. And there are a number of different theories on why he did this, but Reed suggested that the Messianic secret was not historical, and it was actually an invention of the writer of Mark, in order to explain a few things, mainly to reconcile the idea that Jesus was the Messiah but did not have a Messianic ministry in the traditional sense. Reed wanted to show that Jesus actually was not trying to have a ministry that would liberate all of the Hebrew nation from Romans, and he was instead actually trying to just spread a more, I guess, philosophical isn't really the right word, more mental, ideological kingdom of God, let's say. So Reed proposed that the Messianic secret existed to reduce tension between early Christian beliefs about the Jesus' Messianic nature and the non-Messianic Messianic nature of his ministry, which was a preconceived notion of Jewish kind of ideals coming from the Old Testament, where it was prophesied that a Messiah would come and liberate the Hebrew nation, liberate Israel, and save people from what people assumed would be Roman occupation. Reed did not only rely on commands that Jesus gave out to his disciples and to demons, but Reed also said that the parables themselves are a way that Jesus would try and kind of hide the nature of his ministry and hide the fact that he was in fact the Son of God. Reed said that Jesus' messianic mission could not be understood without the cross, and this was something that the disciples and people during Jesus' mission had no understanding of. This meant that Jesus couldn't actually reveal to the disciples or to anyone that he was preaching to that he was the Messiah, because they didn't understand how he would be the Messiah without having knowledge of his passion, of his death, and his resurrection. And it is only with his death and resurrection that his true nature can be revealed, and not only revealed, but also understood. So we have a quote here for Jesus. Kind of all over the place right now. It's fine. We're rolling with it. Okay. Jesus says to the disciples at one point, "The mystery of the kingdom of God has been granted to you, but to those outside, everything comes in parables." Now this brings in the idea that parables are A, display the kingdom of God, and B, to read at least a way of disguising the actual idea of the kingdom of God and what the kingdom of God means. They are essentially pieces of information that can only be understood through the context of the future. We understand a large amount of the parables we are given by Jesus, things like the mustard seed, which is often used, we only understand them through the context of Jesus' passion and his ministry and things that he says later. This is why the chronology of the Bible can be so fluid, because many of the parables that Jesus gives us are only understood through later contexts. And this is why the Messianic secret was so important and such a significant part of the early gospel for Mark, especially through chapters 1 to 8, because the disciples just could not understand the mission that Jesus had. This is why even when Jesus is very open with his disciples in chapters 8 to 11, when Jesus presents himself and predicts his passion, the disciples reject it, because the Messianic... Reed takes this as proof of the Messianic secret, because while Jesus is opening up and not keeping the secret any longer, it has no different effect on the disciples and their behavior around him. John and James even ask for a place at his right and left hand, not realizing that they are not asking for places of glory, but are in fact asking for places of suffering and of death. There are a number of different theories on why the Messianic secret exists, though. A few scholars say that it's literally just a literary translation error. There have been some which say that an original Aramaic translation converted into English would have confused this notion, and there was in fact no Messianic secret. It's just something that we added in later accidentally instead of intentionally to explain something about Jesus' ministry. Alternatively, there's the idea that Jesus, that it is historical, and Jesus said it because he didn't want to be kind of celebritized. He didn't want to be swarmed by followers, because he knew that this would make it harder for him to do his more intimate ministries and his intimate healings. He wouldn't be able to move around as easily, and he would be followed by a large group of people. And B, it would mean that it would inhibit his ability to complete the ministry that he had aimed, which was a more personal ministry focused on discourses and parables and miracles, not on all-out war with Roman authorities, which is what he would have encouraged if he gave himself up and said that he was the Messiah. If we look at how he ends up dying, we see that he is tried because he is claiming to be the king of the Jews. He is claiming to be the Messiah when he is murdered, and that is what gets him murdered. He can't tell people that he is the Messiah too early, because he knows that telling people that he's the Messiah is what will bring about the end of his ministry. So that is the historical approach. And then we have the theological approach, which of course Reed eventually brought up. The theological approach is of course the idea that this is more the idea that Jesus knew it was not his time to be revealed, and knew that he must go to trial and die at some point, and that this is the moment when the Messianic secret would be fully revealed to him, essentially that because Jesus has future knowledge, being one with God, that Jesus... this is why Jesus chose to not reveal the Messianic secret to anyone. Finally, there's a vague literary theory that Mark may have been trying to associate Jesus with the character Odysseus, trying to draw parallels between Jesus and Odysseus, who had to disguise himself when he returned to Ithaca in order to hide himself from his enemies. In the same way, Jesus has to disguise his true nature, even though it might be harmful to his ministry, in order to hide himself from Roman authorities who are trying to kill him. And this is essentially the idea of the Messianic secret in Mark's Gospel.